Later on this morning, we are going to bring you more details of the fight that we now know is going to take place on December the 3rd, not at the Principality Stadium in Wales, but at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, we think, here in London. And it is going to, in spite of his denials to you and I on Saturday night, Derek Chisora is going to be going into the ring against Tyson Fury. That is likely to be confirmed at a press conference tomorrow. It was due to be held today. That press conference is going to be held tomorrow.
Very underwhelming, that, isn't it? After what we were expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I doubt, Simon, if there's a fight fan out there who isn't underwhelmed. But with all due respect to Derek, and you and I both know him very well. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, oh yeah, let's get behind this.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not impressed with it, but then you can ask, who would he fight next? They need to. Frank will tell you he needs to have a fight. He needs to be tuned up for the fight that he wants to have, which is Alexander Usyk in March. So where do they go? You know, you know you're going to get an honest performance. You're not going to get Derek Chisora going in there and cheating anybody. He's going to go in there and put a shift in. But we all know what the outcome's likely to be. There doesn't seem to be any jeopardy in this. So I'm really hoping that Frank is going to deliver a really decent undercard. Yeah. Because that's where I'm going to be looking, rather than the feature event.
Seriously?
Absolutely.
You look further down?
I'm not interested in this fight. I respect Derek Chisora's right to go in and make a lot of money. I respect Tyson Fury for having a defence of his title, albeit a voluntary one. I don't respect the principles of this fight because I think it's not a meaningful fight.
Do you think he'll give it more of a go than Dillian Whyte did?
Yes, I do. I think Chisora
because
will
that
do.
was really poor.
Chisora put in a commendable performance against the very early in the division Alexander Usyk when he first stepped up to heavyweight. But there is, they fought twice before. There's no real jeopardy in this, I don't think, besides the fact that people might give Derek Chisora a puncher's chance. But if Deontay Wilder can't do that much damage to Tyson Fury in terms of a compelling outcome, I don't think Derek Chisora. So I kind of look at it, and I like Frank, and I'm happy to be corrected on it, but I think it's taking the public a little bit for we can just serve up what we want.
Well, hopefully they'll pull a rabbit out the hat in terms of the undercard. And one source said to me last night, there's an expectation Daniel Dubois will get is on the same fight card that night.
That's a good shout.
We shall see. So many. I mean, there's been a lot of words all over the place in the world of boxing in recent days, and you've had a fair say about a whole bunch of things, Simon. Many people agree with your take on the reasons for the postponement of the Conor Benn Chris Eubank Jr. fight, of course. Now, let me just tell you this. Matchroom, Eddie Hearn's Matchroom, the chief executive there is Frank Smith. He had a little blast at you because you had a pop at Eddie Hearn, I think. Have a listen to this. This is Frank Smith talking to IFL TV, and Simon's name came up.
I see a lot of people talking about the wait for the fight now. Like people coming out afterwards talking about the wait for the fight, whether that was, I saw it the other day with Simon Jordan's show or on talkSPORT, and Ben Shalom and Spencer Oliver were on there. Again, the health and safety of our fights is always paramount, but these guys were looking at making the Kell Brook fight 157 pounds, and no one had a problem with that then. So we can't just pick and choose. We can't say you did this, you did that. So let's all just be on the same level with it.
In terms of Simon Jordan, you mentioned it. What did you make of him calling Eddie Hearn a coward?
Look, I won't go back and forth with people. Simon Jordan isn't he like a failed businessman? Simon Jordan, who's ended up on the radio. So is what it is.
So dear. What are you going to do?
Oh, what do you say to that?
I take observations from my peers. I'm not going to take it from somebody that's been given a job by somebody who's given a business by their dad. Let's get it right. When you've achieved things in life, the problem with boxing, and it seems to me that you're not allowed to have an opinion. And because we're having an opinion and we're pushing back and we're not frightened to air it, and we don't have to have the orthodoxy of being, I better kiss your backside, otherwise I won't get an interview with you. I better defer to you, otherwise I won't get an audience with you. I couldn't give a monkeys about these people. I will call it for how I see it. I'm not an expert in the field of boxing. I don't profess to be one, but I can see things with my eyes, and I can see the material disadvantages of the stories that are being put out by these. There is absolute duplicity in what's being said. I listened to that interview out of maudlin interest, and listened to the diverting of information and the misdirection and the failure to answer questions. Yes, it was a better interview from the guys that interviewed, and I'm right to call Eddie Hearn out for being cowardly. He's a very clever young man and has done very well with a business that his father gave him, and we can all have an opportunity to be given a business. Some people go out and build businesses on their own. He's taken it to another level, right? And he's done very well at it. But the performance of ducking an audience, and they can hide behind legality, or they can turn around and answer questions properly. You're bringing a game and a very, very valuable sport. I don't just mean financially, I mean in all aspects, into disrepute. And the only reason this fight wasn't stopped on the 20th, there was a moral responsibility for the fighters to be told by their promoters, there's a failed drug test, we're pulling this off. And the only reason they didn't pull this fight down was because of the size and scale of the fight. If this was a 50 grand, 100 grand fight, there'd have been no discussion. There'd have been no, we need to work it through. We need to recognise whether VADA. The only reason VADA isn't potentially accepted as a methodology that they like to look at in this instance is because it doesn't have a sanctioning effect. It's the same test as UCAB would do.
Yeah.
So when I'm sat there listening to these guys, in this industry, I think they do themselves a disservice. I think they do the industry a discredit. I think the Boxing Board of Control are not much better. And I think that people need to have now, for an outsider, which is what they don't like, people don't like it when people like me come in, oh, you haven't been in boxing for X, Y amount of years, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, there are things I do know what I'm talking about, and I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to commerce. I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to integrity. I do know what I talk about when it comes to losing money and making money. I can have those conversations, and when it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, you know what it is? It's a duck.
Yeah.
And this industry seems to me to be a little bit like the Wild West, and they don't like it when someone says, no, actually, you're not very good. Actually, you don't tell the truth. Actually, you're not particularly brave. Because otherwise, if you say everything they want to hear, then no one gets anything wiser, no one learns anything, and the industry never changes. And this sport does need to evolve because it's getting away with things, Jim. It's the only sport that's not got a dementia thing on its toes, and that'll be coming next. And if you haven't got people that are effectively trying to run the sport for the betterment of the sport, you're going to have this.
Yes, exactly.
So he can turn around and make these silly little, immature, uninformed, ill-educated, bad carrier mentality observations.
Completely. It was a totally cheap shot. And you're on the radio with me, and I'm delighted about it. So he was on the radio as well, Frank Smith, who is the chief executive of Matchroom. Okay. Fair play.